So good morning. We are RadioKair, and this morning we are doing some more highlights of our veteran community. We wanted to spend as much time as possible highlighting our veterans, their businesses, their organizations, and in the hope that the listeners, the small business community in the greater Lake Houston area will consider contributing. We'll consider getting themselves involved. We'll consider just basically the veterans and thanking that community. And this is the way RadioKair and Bob and Linda are choosing to do this is to really spend a whole day on Veterans Day. Going through each of those small businesses and highlighting them, as well as the organizations that are tied to them. This morning, I got a really special guest that does a great deal for our veteran community. It's Mr. Vargas. He's with VFW Post 9296, and from what he's explaining to me, it's kind of the east side of downtown a little bit, off of Maxey Road. So my big picture learn and understanding out of this interview was to understand really the details of what the VFW does for our community. I think we all have been around. We've driven past them our whole lives. They've always been close to our houses, those kind of things. But being non-military like I am, what goes on behind those doors, I have very little exposure to. Luckily, I have been to a few events at those locations, and those have been great. But what's really their goal behind their organization, and what are they hoping to accomplish, are all things that I kind of have in the back of my mind of what to accomplish this morning. So first off, I wanted to ask Mr. Vargas a couple questions about where he's from, what brought him to sit in front of us here today, his service, his career path, his family life, to understand personally who he is, what he's doing, and why he's chosen this life. So, Mr. Vargas, welcome.
I appreciate it, John. Thank you for having me.
And then please talk a little bit about yourself.
Well, guess I could begin. I'm a first generation from my mother. She crossed from Guadalajara High School. And that being said, when I graduated from high school, I wasn't too keen or knowledgeable about how to apply for college. Next thing you know, as in my junior year, a recruiter came calling. And me not knowing about college, I figured the best way to go to college, join the Marine Corps, get that funding for college, and come right back as soon as my first enlistment was up. Needless to say, things didn't happen that way. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed the fact of traveling. I enjoyed the fact of what I did in the Marine Corps as an aviation ordnanceman. My first duty station was in Japan. Matter of fact, Okinawa, Japan. And from there, it just continued. I was like, you know what? I want to continue going this route. Went all my enlistment from a private to a gunnery sergeant, and then from a gunnery sergeant, I transferred to me and I applied to become a chief warrant officer in my specific field. But I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. And I came back to Houston, Texas because after I retired, because my daughter's going to University of Houston. I want to spend some time with her while I'm before she goes off and does her own life, whatever she wants to and do, or in any of her endeavors, you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So already we've learned Mr. Vargas, first generation American, right? It sounds like pretty much you've always been rooted into Texas and Houston more specifically. So always been part of our community. So whenever you make the decision, it sounds like probably before you even left high school, you're making the decision to join and serve. What went into that decision for you? Was it more of hey, this is just kind of an automatic and an easy way to earn some money? Or was it, hey, look, I have this duty or this feeling? Because, different people in different times of our history, right? The U.S. history, some events have changed and shaped the way people move throughout their careers. And what was that for you?
Honestly, John, back then, I could not answer that question, why I made those decisions. Now, I look at my bringing up. I enjoyed television. I enjoyed action movies. I enjoyed cartoons like Transformers, and I'll leave it off in regards to Transformers and wise. Unknown to me, when I recently retired, and I'm approximately about 2 years ago, I come to some knowledge of the fact that the voice of Optimus Prime is actually influenced by the individual's brother that was a captain in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
He served in Vietnam. So me waking up every Saturday morning and watching these cartoons, visualizing Transformers, Optimus Prime, being that a leader, a strong but gentle leader. And when I joined the Marine Corps, I saw that same concept, not knowing I was already getting influenced
Yeah.
when I was young.
So maybe it's subliminal, right? Propaganda behind the scenes, you think? All right. All right. I wouldn't
Guilty.
have, yeah, I wouldn't have put that, but it's a fair point, right? I think whenever we watched TV, when we watched cartoons, when me and you were younger, we're close to the same age, and when we watched those cartoons and those shows, it was different than today, right? I mean, it is, and maybe that did maybe influence our decision through our careers because people our age are, I hate to are a bit more rugged than today, right? I mean, I don't know how to say it politely, but we're kind of, I don't want to say aggressive, but less polished, right?
There you
So,
go.
yeah, so it is, it's probably a true statement there. You had some references that I really liked, and I was listening to you talk to Bob and Linda, or Bob and Dee Dee outside, and one of the things I heard you say, we'll get into later, but you have a lot of cartoon references, and I kind of love the way your mind works in that to bring it back down. So first generation American, and then the Marine Corps. You join, you go through basic, and then your first orders were to head out to Japan. Is that right?
Okinawa, Japan.
Yeah, that had to be a cool experience, right?
I tell you what, in the United States, I didn't feel so tall. In Japan, I felt like a giant.
Yeah. Yeah, is it true? So I've heard that when we travel that direction, when Americans travel that directions, it's almost like a celebrity status when you're in the population. Is that true?
It's probably because they're probably looking up, and you think that you're being celebrity status. That's probably why.
Okay.
But it was definitely a rude awakening when I arrived in Okinawa, Japan. I had no idea. Gratefully, I was. You got Marines that meet you at the airport. I was on the impression I'm going to be at the airport and try to figure out how to speak to somebody, get me to Marine Corps Futema, and Marine Corps Station Futema, not knowing. So I was blessed.
There you go. So they actually have travel arrangements.
We do in the Marine Corps.
I like it. I like it. Okay, so and then you go through your service, and again, how long were you in service with the U.S. Marine Corps?
21 years.
21 years. That's a long time to make that dedication, right? So through this process, you had to have had times where you continue service. You saw some different conflicts, right? If you were in 21 years, my guess is, were you in right before or right of the 2001 9/11 attacks?
That was in my second enlistment.
Okay, so you had been in for a while at that point.
Yes.
So at that point, you're probably watching the news like a lot of us, going, "Well, we're about to get busy." Is that inaccurate?
That is pretty accurate,
Yeah.
John Tater. Pretty freaking accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've watched. I mean, I only have the reference point of movies, but I can imagine it's not far from watching TV, going, "Oh wow, it's going to be a busy afternoon for us," and then and going down the path. And so my guess is you had some deployments into the Middle East, and had to make choices on continuing your enlistment or detaching, and what was that as you went through those processes?
Believe it or not, I know a lot of people ask, like, "What? How is it? How can you do stuff like that?" I can only sum it up as people, janitors, they clean, they train, or firemen, they train to go into fire buildings. We train annually as Marines. Your annual pistol, annual rifle, your gas chamber, Marine Corps martial arts, meaning, for some reason, we're just programmed that way. It doesn't seem too much, so it just becomes second nature when we're actually there doing something, which someone else might seem that's dangerous. Yes, it is, but with the proper training, it's not as dangerous. It's just a lot of stuff is mitigated, and you work as a team. If that makes that answer your question.
Yeah, I think So mine was more of my guess is, and again, I don't know. So I'm just, tell me if I'm wrong, but for someone like you have a skill set that's been developed over time, right? So your skill was obviously dealing in combat and for the U.S. Marine Corps. a conflict happens to where and you are in a scenario and your skill set is of need, right? So I think what you're saying is through those skills, you knew the United States needed your services at that time, and you were better to utilize your skills in that arena as opposed to maybe detaching and going through, like you said, back into a college career. Is that accurate or is
Yeah, actually, better articulated there, John. But yeah,
yeah, okay.
exactly that.
Okay. All right. So no, it is impressive to think about someone that spent 21 years serving, and then to think about times where you know someone would have wanted to detach, right? I mean, I don't think there's a nice day in the Middle East to where you're like, man, this is really pretty. This is like a beach. I think it's extremely hot or extremely cold. I think that pretty much everything is extreme: sand, wind, extreme weather events, pretty much nonstop. So it's nice to know that people understand their skill set, what they're called to do, and you're there to do it. So thank you so much for your service. And I say that to say it's not an empty thank you, right? It's a true thank you. I wanted, just like you when I was in high school, I had a Navy recruiter hit me up pretty hard, and I really considered it and told my dad that's what I wanted to do, and my dad was absolutely not. He goes, "What's going to happen to you is you're going to get stuck on a submarine," and that scared me enough to go, "You might be right." So I chose not to, and if I had it to do it again, I would have, right? But hindsight's 2020, and I'm 47 and walking fine and supporting our military from afar. But I do thank you for the sacrifices and the time you spent away from your family, and the times you had to make difficult decisions.
You're welcome, John. Thank you.
All right, so let's get down to the VFW a little bit. So I'm an outsider looking in, like I told you a second ago. The VFW, my thought is it's the military service members are often a pretty large brotherhood. I think the Marine Corps is a brotherhood all in itself, from the way I see it from an outside. But I mean, all welcoming, right? Whenever you do retire, I think you guys have your little squabbles and little funny arguments and sayings, but really, you've got the Army, the Air Force, the Marines,
Right.
the whole team, the Navy that work together to support each other coming out in retirement. And my guess is that's what a VFW is that brotherhood of people that have been deployed that have a reference point to support each other to, just sit down and BS for a minute. So am I accurate in that statement, or is it something different?
You're pretty accurate. The only thing I would add to everything, it's a brother and a sisterhood, because now we have sisterhoods that actually
Yeah,
go.
of course.
That being said, the only difference is people probably see VFWs as old individuals inside smoking and drinking. I can't speak for every VFW, but for ours, the VFW post 9296, it's not smoking. You can smoke outside.
Yeah.
But we're still inside smoking and joking regardless with each other. Whether you male or female, whatnot case would be, civilians, because it's open to the public. So everybody can come in 365 as long as we're open.
Yeah.
Preferably don't unlock the locks and come on in. But it's open to everybody.
Yeah, right on. So it is cool, and we've had a couple. I'm part of the Greater East Montgomery County Chamber, and we've done what we call a Thirsty Thursday, which is basically a happy hour event. And Jay, who's part of the VFW post, and I don't know his number, but I know it's in Porter, Texas, opened it up to us, and we went in there. And you're right, it's not I expected what you're explaining, a smoky pool hall bar, dirty, dingy type place. That's not what it is. His, and I haven't been to yours yet, but his is very clean and very family oriented. It's like there was kids running around. I was like, this is not what I've seen on TV, right? So that's right. It's pretty cool to know that it's developed. And the other thing me and Mr. Vargas were talking about was, we remember, and he's probably referring to the same, movies and same thoughts about old VFWs that I had when I was a kid. But, what we thought was old is, well, one, because we're a lot older, and two, because the conflicts changed, right? And we have I hate to say updated conflicts, but we have more recent conflicts that bring a different aged, VFW member into that environment. So I think that is accurate. And do you want to talk a little bit about, what it feels like in your VFW? What do you guys do from day to day? And
Well, I transferred from a VFW post 8790, which is a lot of younger veterans my age, 43 and below. But since like where you're discussing some VFWs, other older guys, so I transferred to 9296 to implement a lot of new changes, and that's the reason we're going. And I'm explaining in regards, but at 1996, don't underestimate these Korean War vets and whatnot. They can outwork me.
yeah,
I tell you what, I'm more the IT guy as a retired chief warrant officer. I try to give him that plethora of the social media guy, and we work together and as a good mesh. Now we explain it like you take care of the building, I'll take care of the administrative stuff. I got an assistant that takes care of all the data entry, and it takes a team, and that's pretty much what we're doing. And we're asking for everybody who wants to come and join to be part of that team.
yeah. So when you say work, right? I'm thinking it's a hangout amongst a bunch of buddies, and now all of a sudden you're like, no, we have responsibilities to certain things, right? So my assumption is you have a membership, and you can join and say, hey, I'm going to contribute X number of dollars a month, and you have an ongoing membership type scenario, but you also have people that are far more active in the VFW that help support the VFW itself and keep it running and responsibilities and those kind of things.
Correct. None of us are compensated. It's all volunteer.
Okay.
So we come in. You have a treasurer. You have trustees that check our finances. You have a quartermaster, that's my bill at this time. I take care of all their finances, bills, or whatnot, paperwork. You got the commander. Obviously, he's gonna be the face of that particular VFW. You got the senior vice, junior vices, in case that individual can't make the certain events. They step up and do so. So it's a team, but that team's not just doesn't stop there. You mentioned about coming in regards to paying. Yeah, there's a membership fee, annual fee. However, they can pay via volunteer time.
Okay, good.
It's not just substantial amount of just money. Like if you want to just come down and have a good time, you don't know, bring people with you. That could be a source, not necessarily a payment, but a venue of contributing to the post.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think like I was saying about Jay, bringing that event down to his. My guess is the VFW for that event made a pretty chunk of change.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah. All right. So that gets us down. So I think we understand a little bit about the VFW, what it does. Tell me about the how you contribute. The brotherhood and sisterhood of the VFW, you've got to contribute back to the community. My guess is you do some sort of events, and my guess is that you do some sort of support for current and former veteran members. And what does that look like in your VFW?
In my VFW, we contact our actual comrades and see how they're doing, on a monthly basis. See if they need any support, what that may be, and if we can support it, we'll do so, or if not, try to find a way support them. Another way is we volunteer. Good example, Houston Bay Chamber of Commerce had a veteran expo at the George R. Brown.
Yeah, I heard that was an awesome event.
So what we did is we were the breakdown crew at the end, setting up and breaking down.
Oh, nice.
Again, it's just volunteer hours. We're making sure that people are aware, not just of us, but veteran community. It's a family.
Yeah.
And it just continues from there. We're bipartisan, but doesn't mean we can't help and support. Either we host events at our post, create it ourselves, or assist other, whether it be individuals or nonprofits, in their events. Because sometimes they just don't have the manpower.
Yeah, that's that event that they held at the George R. Brown Center, that was huge from my understanding. It was dang near packed out from what I've heard.
It was huge, and I was tired from it. I had to sleep 2 days to recover.
Yeah, so one of the things I heard you say when you were talking to Bob and Dee Dee outside was, and it was a reference point that I kind of shook my head at initially, and I'm like, what in the heck? Where is he going with this? But I think it's good for you to explain, because I think that it explains kind of part of the whole. Explain the Lion King reference.
Oh, are you referring to the fact of the tip of the spear and the support element?
Yeah. I think that's a appropriate reference to explain a very clear point.
All right. I can only speak on my behalf. So a lot of Marines we're the tip of the spear. We're the world's 911 force call in case of war. We could go in there and do something. However, every tip of the spear, meaning the person that goes in, whether it be the operator, they need a support element. Support element could be on the military side, uh, air command element, aviation. Ground side, we could tanks, troops, um, and supply. But the support element does not actually stop there. It continues. You continues to factor where do those rounds come from? Where do those tanks come from? Or aircraft. They were made somewhere. They were made back in the States. Our actual civilians or people that are working, they're doing that for us so we can actually go into theater to use these equipment on behalf of the nation. Hence the reason why I say it's a big circle of life. You might not be the tip of the spear pulling the trigger, but that support element is just as important as a trigger puller in theater.
Yeah, it was a great explanation because it brings back to what we're trying to do here at Radio KAIR through this, the day of service at 11/11, Veterans Day, recognizing our U.S. veterans and then giving them a platform and a media to explain their organizations or their businesses and how we can, as a community, greater Lake Houston area, support them. But I think that it also gives, someone like me a little bit of pride to know, okay, well, maybe I didn't serve, but what sometimes we're doing at home does support our veterans, and us doing a little more is obviously needed. So let's talk. I hate to go to a difficult subject, but I want to start it by community give back, and that's really what I'm asking you, and what the VFW does as far as giving back to the community. But I want to start it with saying this right now, and I've said this before in previous interviews, but we have Christmas around the corner, which a lot of people spend a lot of money during Christmas. I think it's no secret. I think that our community as a whole, and maybe bigger than that, the larger community, could do a better job of budgeting this year and in future years. And I use the example of my son. My son is a 10-year-old. And me and him are going to have a talk pretty quick over, hey, what do you want for Christmas? What do you really want? And I already know the answer is about 12 packages of Legos. My kid's a Lego junkie. So me and him are also going to have a talk about, hey, how about I get you 5 packages of Legos, and then let's give 7 of them away to somebody else in need, or take that X number of dollars, which we know with 7 packages of Legos now, it's like taking out a loan on your car, but take that money and move it in a different direction and budget it towards a better use. And I think I really need to start explaining to my son better about, what does veteran service, people that have served, how can we as a family support that, and to start instilling that in my son a little bit. So all that being said, the veteran community is the brotherhood and sisterhood we talked about, and I've learned pretty quickly through the last several years that I've been interviewing and talking to people about this. Y'all are a community that supports itself probably better than any community out there. And so with that, what does the VFW do? And then am I explaining that correctly, of maybe budgeting things differently for families, and how can we as listeners or small business owners contribute to what you got going on?
So it goes right back when we were talking about the circle of life with the Lion King reference. And this is what I mean about this. I know we're talking about VFW, but Toys for Tots is an amazing organization that
Yes, sir.
Me being a Marine, when I served in Naval Air Station Fort Worth, I actually ran it for 2 years as a warehouse manager in COIC for the Metroplex area, which would mean Fort Worth, Arlington, and Dallas. Mm-hmm. And what I bring that up is it's due to the fact that I would prefer to give limelight that we work together than it is to what the VFW can provide. We can always give acknowledgement to if you have a toy that you want to give, or if you want to volunteer as in receive toys, you can actually contact Toys for Tots. Mm-hmm. And feel free to get a hold of me. once I get y'all's my point of contact, and I could forward you that point of contact wherever asked for it. As for the VFW, we'll collect toys for Christmas. We'll actually have gatherings. When you mean by community, if we can have an individual veteran that probably never went isolated himself or was very introverted,
Yes, sir.
if he comes to the VFW, we could probably have him help him open up. That opening up can actually support the family now. He can actually now interact a whole lot better, function much better the fact that than he could have been when whatever demons that the person was actually facing, if any. Doesn't mean that every veteran is, but bottom line is we're there for each other. And the fact of you mean when you're saying that we real quick to talk to another, yeah, you're right about that. I noticed that too when once I actually came out the military, retired. We do, especially if we're Marines and we know we're Marines. For some reason, we gravitate to one another, and next thing you know, you got Urah coming from all over the place, and people looking like what in God's name is actually happening over there. But we're proud. No, it's not, it doesn't come from a place of arrogancy. It's just we're confident, and we're glad to spend time with one another.
Yeah, no, it is a cool thing. So what you're saying is, yeah, if there are the opportunities for tour donations, the VFW and Toys for Tots is the Marine organization, right? Toys for Tots, which is a good one, and me and you'll gonna talk a little bit about Fort Worth here in a minute, or here after we conclude. But the other one that you're sounds like your ask is if you have maybe a veteran that you know of, someone in the environment, your ask is to introduce them to a VFW member to see if they, are more willing to talk about, like you said, the demons, or talk through the thing with a former veteran in that VFW setting. And is that really y'all's real goal of what you're trying to accomplish?
That's one of the goals. One of the other goals for me personally is just create a village within our community, within the veterans and the civilians. Civilians, it could be family members.
Okay.
Because a veteran might have passed away already, and they might have been widowed, whether it be male or female, and that's just something else that empowers the actual community as a whole. Unified front.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, it's a lot of good things there. You mentioned that you do have some upcoming events, pretty direct. I know you have dates written down over here. You want to go through those real quick to understand how we can help?
Yeah, by all means. We're looking for volunteers for November 8th.
Okay.
So VFW 9296, we apply for a grant with Home Depot Foundation. And what they're going to end up doing is coming in, and they're going to come in, paint the inside of all the walls in the building, do some landscaping outside. They're going to install the butcher's block right next to our grill so we can actually better grill and people enjoy their food.
Okay.
On November 10th, Marine Corps birthday, of course. November 10th. November 10th.
Yes, sir.
But what we're doing on November 10th is we're going to cook about 8 briskets, 15-pound. And if you're a Marine, it's a free meal. But of course, as long as food lasts. So from 5 to 8. So on November 10th, free meal for Marines.
Perfect.
Continue on to January 20th. This is something I don't even know how to explain, except the fact that I do not recall the name of the organization, but they're providing a method for veterans to express themselves in the theater performance.
Oh, yeah, that's the one you were telling me about. Okay.
Yep. That'll be January 20th, so 20th. So myself, a handful of veterans, and our children, my daughter, she's not a child no more, she's a young adult, will be performing at Rice University. And it's the title of it's the way you sound, how do you sound forgiveness, or how do you hear forgiveness?
Okay.
And I'm not going to be on the leotard. just in case,
Yeah.
to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking a little bit about that. But I think it's important for that event, for the event at Rice with the theater production. What's the hope there that you were explaining to me? What's the real goal for that event?
For that goal that we actually been sitting down is it gives the veteran, probably a veteran doesn't want to talk. Even a veteran might not want to talk to another veteran. And it gives them what we're trying to actually, display within that performance. It gives them a method to express themselves.
Yeah.
So without even talking to anybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, that person could be very engaging, but still might have a lot of actual stuff inside that they're working through. Mm-hmm. And that theater performance in case of B is the practice and the performance is for that. That's what it's supposed to actually end up doing, giving that individual a method to release, like it is probably working out, running, reading, or just having a conversation with the family members or a psychiatrist. Sometimes you might not have it.
Yeah, I mean it's but we all need different avenues to express ourselves, right? And some veterans may have not had the opportunity or have chosen to isolate themselves a bit, and this just gives one more avenue for them to express themselves, and hopefully, one more chance to get them out of a little bit of a funk.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, and then there was one more event. Is that the last one you were talking?
Oh, that's the last one.
Okay.
Right now, there's always more coming up, and you can find us on VFW9296.org.
VFW9296.org. Okay. And then is there another way that we should communicate with you, or is there another request or another ask that the VFW has?
Be kind to one another.
Okay. Yeah, it's again, this is RadioKair's way to spend a few minutes and I'll say this, we've got former military that have sacrificed a lot, when we said this in the last interview, but a guy from a corporate setting, sometimes we're selfish enough to think that sacrifice is, hey, coming home 2 hours late for dinner, or, sacrifice is, hey, I've got to go on this business trip for 3 days and won't see that's not real sacrifice. I mean, when you measure it against what military does. So our U.S. service members will be gone for months and months at a time without seeing their family. And then, the sacrifice of what could potentially happen during their deployment or while they're away, right? There's the physical risk that is out there. And there's also the psychological, what they're going to see, what they're going to feel, what things they've got to battle in their own situation. So let's remember those this Veterans Day. Let's thank one, and when we thank a veteran, let's do it meaningfully and not some kind of open thank you. That's not the way we want to be thanked. And I do thank you, Mr. Vargas, for what you've done and what you've accomplished in your 21 years of service. And thank you for contributing to the veterans after the fact. Right, there's a lot of guys dealing with a lot of things, and I know you're just there, and your team at the VFW is there to support them. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, John.
Yep. So have a good day. If there's anything else, please let us know. Thank you.
Appreciate it, brother.